So coming from CNBC, Uber slashes people division by nearly a quarter. CEO says changes are necessary. Oh, the HR people, the people that fire the other people are all getting fired. Let the tears commence. Oh, so sad. Oh, so sad. I think this is an interesting story because one of the things I've remarked on over the years is how so many people that now work in the tech sector don't actually have technology jobs. So one of the things that I liked when you go back 10, 15, 20 years ago is that if you ran into people that were working in the world of tech, they were actually working in the world of tech, right? You could ask them, oh, what systems do you maintain, support, and deploy? And they would wax lyrically about Novell or Microsoft or Linux or whatever else, right? Basically, when you got a whole bunch of tech people together, we were actually tech people, right? That was a good old time. One of my frustrations over the past 10 years is basically how many normies are showing up at tech events and really making me lose my mind, right? Because so many times, right? Like I've talked about this a lot with this whole AI boom. So look, I'm open-minded. I will tell you what my opinion is, and I have very strong opinions. But that's not cast in cement. If I can hear other people's arguments, I can be shifted to have a different viewpoint. And so I've looked at this whole AI disaster, this whole AI boom, and I think it's a crock of crap. Like there's 10% value and 90% crap in all of this mess. But I've gone to AI tech events and I'm like, look, I'll listen to people, right? Maybe there's something about architecture I don't understand. Maybe there's something about the return on investment, KPIs, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe there's something there that I'm missing. So I'm going to go to these tech events, and these are tech events. So I'm going to talk with tech people to understand what it is that I'm missing. And the horrible thing is you go to these tech events, especially if it has anything to do with AI, and it's just chock-a-block full of fucking normies, right? They're people that work for big technology companies, but they're not technology workers, right? I've run into people from Meta. I've run into people from these big tech companies, right? And that's where I'll be there and I'll be like, oh wow, right? You're a prominent person, right? You got a big title at a big tech company. Okay, I need to understand what's going on here. And then what you find out is they just start spitting all of this magical thinking horse crap. As I talked about before, I was in Austin last year. I went to this one event, and literally, I shit you not. This is how stupid all this is. So I ran into this guy from Meta, right? From Meta. And he was literally the developer outreach person, developer relations for AI. And so I'm like, great, I got a question for you, right? This is a Meta employee. This is a DevRel guy, literally for artificial intelligence. I'm like, I need to understand why you're trying to say that the Llama model is open source, right? So there's this whole thing with open source when it comes to models. There's a whole bunch of questions on what exactly open source means. But one of the interesting things specifically with the Llama model, the Llama 3 model, was that it was limited to companies that had less than 700 million monthly users or whatever, right? And so basically it's a free model, but there's a bunch of questions on whether or not it really should be considered open source. Like Adobe, you all don't remember this, but Adobe Flash or Adobe Reader, these were free and they were free to use, but they sure as hell were not open source. Free isn't open source, right? Anyways, and so I was talking to this person, and I've got to understand, what is the argument for it being open source? And he's like, well, it's free. I'm like, yeah, but again, free. You can have Adobe Reader. Adobe Acrobat was free, and that doesn't mean it's open source, right? And it was like, well, we have a lot of developers, and they're finding a lot of they are very appreciative to what we're doing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not arguing that. I'm literally, it's like one of those, I'm literally not trying to be snarky here. I'm literally trying to understand your argument as a Meta DevRel employee on why this is open source. Oh, goes round and round. Oh, he just got very mad at me. He ended up just being very, very, very mad. Well, I'm going to go talk to people that appreciate what I'm doing. I'm like, you are the devil. Because that was a funny part. I literally went back to the hotel room and I was looking at my wife and I'm like, and it was weird because I really don't try to drill people. I don't try to drill normies. Why do you drill normies? You don't drill normies. You're not going to get an oil out of normies. You don't drill them, right? So I'm like, yeah, why was I drilling? Because, you have this conversation and the whole conversation goes all over the place. And so like when you're in the moment, you forget certain things, but you're on a path. It's like, I was talking to my wife and it's like, yeah, I don't really understand why I was drilling him. I mean, he is a Meta employee, but whatever. That doesn't really mean much of anything. And then I realized, that's why I sat there and realized, it's like, oh, he introduced himself as the developer relations guy for artificial intelligence. And so, yeah, that's how we got down this path. Literally just trying to ask them this question, right? And that's one of the curious things that I found is like, there's so many people now that work for Google and work for Meta and work for all these big tech companies that are not technology professionals. And I think that's one of the things that's screwing up the conversation that society is having, the civilization has when it comes to like artificial intelligence and this new technology. Because basically what happens, like in the old days, if you go back 20 years ago and you said, oh, my X, Y, or Z works for Lenovo or IBM, or one of these big companies, right? They were most likely an engineer or whatever else. So when they gave an opinion, it was an opinion as an engineer. The issue that we have now is like, oh, well, my nephew, he works for Meta, and he says AI is, more dangerous than a nuclear weapon. And so look, if Meta knows that it's more dangerous than a nuclear weapon, obviously it is. And you're like, that's great. So what's his job at Meta? Oh, he's a marketing intern. Oh, yeah. Wow. A marketing intern has opinions about technology. Sorry. Am I supposed to care? But I think that's one of the interesting things. We have so many people now that work for these big tech companies, but aren't really technology professionals. And why this becomes to be a bigger issue is that a lot of these people that work in these big tech companies, right? They get that personality boost. They get that ego boost because they work at these companies. The issue that you run into is that at most of these companies, at least up until 6 months ago, the technology people were the ones that were actually important. The technology people were the ones that were actually valuable, right? They're worth $200,000 a year. They're worth $300,000 a year. One of the issues that you get to in a cultural environment for these companies is if you only have like one or two or a small number of these types of people, it doesn't really screw with your company culture, right? If you have a large corporation and the lawyers make a shit ton of money, everybody kind of expects that, right? If you work at a large corporation and the senior engineers make a shit ton of money, everybody kind of expects that. One of the problems you run into is what happens when you're working at an engineering company. So you may have 10,000 engineers, 10,000 technical staff. They're making a lot of money. But then you also have to have HR and marketing and all of these other people that frankly should be making, a fifth, a quarter of the salary, right? If it's a normal open market. Well, the problem is culturally that doesn't work. Right? If you have this whole group of people that are supporting your engineers and they're making a fraction of money, and they're professionals, they went to college and they're 5 years in their career, the whole 9 years, but they're making a fraction what the engineers are making, that's going to be a disaster culturally. So one of the issues that we have in the tech sector is that many of the non-technical staff have had their compensation, their pay and benefits massively inflated. So even if they're not making quite as much as the engineers, they're probably making a hell of a lot more than they should, right? And they also get the ego boost and all that kind of stuff. Like, I work at Meta. You're a marketing intern at Meta. But anyways, right? And I think what's kind of interesting here is as the tech sector implodes, right? So much of the focus is what happens to the engineers. What happens to the engineers, what happens to the coders, what happens to the software folks and all that kind of thing. I think a more interesting thing to look at is what's going to happen to the HR people, what's going to happen to the marketing people, what's going to happen to the PR people, what's going to happen to the people that got very used to making $150,000 a year. Do you know what I'm worth? Oh, Bucka, you were never even worth that. Here's the thing about the software engineers. Right. They're they're coming to a reality check because they were worth $300,000 a year. And now they're about to deliver pizzas. See, girlfriend, the problem we're going to run into with you all, you were never worth that salary. The only reason you got paid that salary was because, basically, from a cultural perspective for the corporation, they were trying to keep everything kind of sane. I think about that. I knew one technology company. I was talking to the CEO, and it came up in a conversation where their chief marketing officer, he said this, oh, this is real. So it was this booming technology, this technology company was doing really well. It was all the whole 9 yards. Anyways, their chief marketing officer was one of the first employees, literally one of the first employees to come along with the company. And so as the company grew, they kept giving them salary raises. They kept giving them more responsibility and all that kind of stuff. And the funny part was, at a certain point in time, the chief marketing officer walked in and says, I do not feel like I am being compensated appropriately at this company, and so I am going to go off to greener pastures. And the hilarious part was I was talking to the CEO after the CMO left, and he said, yeah, well, the funny part was he was not being compensated properly. We were overpaid him by a lot. See, because he was one of the original employees and therefore became one of the original executives, we wanted to make sure his compensation was in line with everybody else's compensation. So his compensation increased simply because everybody else's compensation increased. It wasn't actually because of his value to the company. Oh, Lordy. And I think that's what we're going to start seeing for a lot of these ancillary folks at these technology companies, right? As Uber dumps people, as Google dumps people, as Oracle dumps people, like there's going to be a big focus on what happens to technology employees, but these other ancillary folks, it's just going to be miserable. It's just, oh yeah. So Uber slashes the people division, right? Uber is slashing 23% of the jobs in its people division as it seeks to streamline operations under the direction of the new president, Jill Hasselbaker. And that's going to be the other thing, right? As these companies as companies basically fire people, right? Here's one of the interesting things. If you're laying off 8,000 people at a time and then eliminating 6,000 jobs at a time, how much are you going to invest in your recruiters? Like, think about this. Again, we talk about the ancillary jobs around the tech industry. Recruiters can make a crap ton of money, right? If you go to if you're a company, at least a while ago, and you went to a recruiting firm to get a new engineer, literally you would pay the recruiting firm 25% of that engineer's first year salary. So if you got like a junior engineer into a position, then they got paid $100,000 a year. It cost $25,000 to the recruiter to get them into that position. A $300,000 a year engineer, $75,000 to find that person and get them into that position. And now imagine in the tech world, right? They're not so worried about recruiters. They're not really worried about that whole recruiter thing anymore. And so that goes away. Again, with HR, think about onboarding, making sure they go through the sexual harassment training, making sure they figure out, what health plans and all that kind of stuff, right? If you're laying off thousands of people at a time, you don't need to onboard as many people. Think about all of these people that get eliminated. The CEO said in a memo that the, quote, changes are necessary to maximize the effectiveness of the people team and the enormous potential ahead of us. The affected segments include recruitment and human resources staff. Uber did not disclose the number of employees cuts, but a spokesperson for the ride-hailing giant said they account for, quote, well under 1% of its 34,000 employees. So that's the thing too. Like, look at the numbers I talk about when we talk about these companies. Uber has 34,000 employees. So remember, none of the drivers, or basically none of the drivers, are employees. That's just the staff to keep up, their systems. I'm betting you a lot of folks of those can go. But anyways, 1% of 34,000 would be 340. So it's still probably hundreds of these people are going. And this is one of the things we're going to be seeing a lot more of too, is as they start focusing their layoffs, right? Instead of being 50% of the company, or 30% of the company, or 25% of the company, what we're going to start seeing is more and more, we're going to cut a few hundred people here. We're going to cut a few hundred people here. And we're going to cut a few hundred people here. In a note to affected teams, Hazel Baker, who was promoted to president and chief corporate affairs officer last month, said the layoffs aim to build a, quote, more connected, modern, operationally excellent organization. Basically, what we're talking about here is efficiency. They're trying to make things more efficient. Some segments have become, quote, complex and fragmented with overlapping responsibilities, unclear ownership, and teams operating too far from the business and partners they support, she added. So anyways, there you go. Uber is dumping damn near a quarter of their HR people. And those HR people, they're about to learn a hard lesson. Oh, you think the lessons the software engineers are about to learn are going to be brutal? Oh, those poor HR people. Those poor HR people. Like, yeah, no. Here's the thing. Not only are you not currently worth what you were getting paid, you were never worth that. And how do you adjust? And that's one of the things I think, like mentally, because we talk about this boom cycle. Think about this. The Great Recession technically ended in 2009. So again, if you graduated college in 2009, so you're 22. You're 22 in 2009. It's now 2026. That's 17 years. You could be 39 years old. That's the thing. Like, that was a nice thing with the dot-com bust. It was pretty quick. Like, so, you come out, you're 25, hey, I think I'm going to take over the world. Everything goes boom. But think about this. Think about these HR people, these marketing people, all that, those kind of people, right? They've been doing this for a long time. This has been their professional life. They have a house, and they have a spouse, and they have 2 kids, and they might be in private school. And they're like, this is what I'm worth. And now they're going to go out in the job market, and they're going to find out not only are they not worth that now, but practically they were probably never worth it. They built their financial expectations essentially off of the fluff that was given to them in order to make the company culture work out during a boom cycle. That's gonna suck. That's gonna suck. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about Uber getting rid of a quarter of their HR people? What do you think about all these tech companies? Just filled, chock-a-block full of normies. Oh, what are you gonna think about all those normie tiers? Does anybody know what to do with normie tiers? That's the whole thing. Like every time somebody gets laid off, every time something horrible happens, there is an opportunity to become a millionaire. Like maybe if we could figure out a way to refine normie tiers into something valuable, that can be our next billion-dollar idea. What do you think we can use normie tiers for? Inquiring minds want to know. Put your thoughts down below. Anyways, if you like these episodes, do remember they're on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. A link is in the doobly-doo. If you want to follow me on LinkedIn, there's a link down there too. With that, see y'all later.